This is my first time playing Breath of the Wild, but funnily enough, I've been playing it. I've been doing this exact series, this Let's Play, since the game released. Day one of release. I got this game and started this Let's Play. So that should probably tell you how I feel about the game. I have been procrastinating to hell when it comes to recording this game. So I do enjoy it. It's just not what I want. It's not what I want out of a Zelda game. And I'm not going to go deeply into that because I seem to have this discussion deeply every time I record this game. But yeah, it's fine on its own. It's just not a Zelda game to me. And what I wanted was a Zelda game. I've played my fair share of open world adventure games, so yeah. What I wanted was the Zelda formula, because that's what made it unique, you know. I don't think this is a bad addition to the series, no. But I would like for it to be treated as a spin-off, not as an actual way forward. I don't think this is a way forward. I think it's too different. Like, this is not Zelda. It's a game that could just as easily not be Zelda. It's like they just took a random game, right, and then added slight Zelda aspects to it, like Link and Zelda and Ganon, and then they passed it off as being a Zelda game at that point, which I think is very lazy to do. I think just take a fucking chance, Nintendo, and make a new game. You know, something that's actually not sponging off the popularity of something else, you know, something that's existed for a long time. Make something new. They effectively made something new with this game, but this didn't have to be Zelda. You know, this is why I'm left very angry when people say, this is the best Zelda game. Well, no, the problem with that statement is that this is not a Zelda game. It's not Zelda. It's an open world sandbox with random characters from the series. It's a spin-off more than anything. So, for people to say that it's a good Zelda game for me, in fact, to say that it's the best Zelda game, in my opinion, is an insult to the franchise, because you're basically saying that the Zelda series has been... is not even worthwhile. The only thing that's worthwhile is something that's completely different from what the rest of the series was. So I think it's very unfair to say that. Yeah, a reskinned open world game. I mean, you could have called this anything. No one would have played this game. Obviously, what I'm about to say is not particularly profound, but if you didn't have Link in this game, and you didn't have Zelda in this game, and you didn't have Ganon in this game, no one would have played this and gone, this is pretty Zelda-like, this is a Zelda-esque open-world game. No one would have said that, because it's not like Zelda at all. It's completely different to Zelda, and I don't think that they should have... I don't think this should have been a mainline game. That's my biggest issue with it. In fact, that's my biggest issue with Monster Hunter World as well. That should not be a mainline game. I think people are too willing to just completely throw away things that make a game unique. I think they shouldn't be doing that. Like Zelda, listen. When you play Zelda, like me, you play it because you have a particular gaming itch that you want to scratch. In this case, referring to the Zelda series, it's going through dungeons, getting heart pieces, doing all that sort of stuff. You know, typical Zelda stuff. It's the formula. It's an itch that you want to scratch. This is none of that. Like, this is just an open world game that could have been anything. So it doesn't scratch that Zelda itch, and for that reason, it's not a Zelda game. And I don't appreciate the people who are willing to just say that it is. And I'm especially annoyed by the people who dare to say that it's the best Zelda game. Again, I find that to be the most insulting thing that you could possibly say about the series. That in 35 years, a generic open world sandbox is the best that they could do. You know? And people probably don't like to hear me say that this is a generic open world sandbox, but that's exactly what it is. They happen to do some things that people enjoyed, but, you know, it's an adventure. If you enjoy adventure games and open world stuff, I don't see what's particularly special about this. I really don't. You've lost me on that one. That's not to say that on its own it's bad. I think it's a fun game, yeah, but people are very, very quick to get on their hands and knees and furiously masturbate while exclaiming their delight when it comes to this game. It's just like, oh, this is the best game I've ever played, oh my god. It's like, no. Get a grip. You know, how many people do you think who played this as their first Zelda game would enjoy actual Zelda? I would say a very small number. So that just goes to show that this game has not done Zelda any favors. What this has done has set a precedent. Yes, I've moved on to Breath of the Wild now, but what this has done, it has set a precedent for Nintendo that says, if we make an open world sandbox that strips the Zelda series of everything that made it Zelda, that's going to do fucking well. That's pretty bad for people who actually want Zelda games, isn't it? And some of you will say, what about Link's Awakening remake, Doom Link? Number one, who asked for that? Number two, who wants that? I didn't. If I want to play Link's Awakening, I'll play Link's Awakening. Make a new Zelda game, please. Can you do that? Could you guys do that? Was A Link Between Worlds not fucking good enough for you? You needed to do it with Link's Awakening as well. Just fucking stop it. Make a new game, please. And not this, I mean an actual Zelda game. If you wouldn't mind. But yeah, that's my opinion, and everyone is welcome to disagree, because that's what opinions are. Opinions that are not always shared among all people, but yeah. Some people would believe that Breath of the Wild has demonstrated itself to be superior to the other Zelda games because it sold more. But yeah, that's not how that works at all. As I mentioned in the previous video and in many other videos, I was originally expecting this game back when it was first announced as Zelda Wii U in 2013 or whatever. I was expecting this game to be Twilight Princess, but with a huge open world. Not literally Twilight Princess, I just mean like that kind of gameplay experience. And that's not what I got. At all. And of course I wasn't happy, and I'm still not happy, but... And the reason why it's a problem for a game like this to be so successful is that what ends up happening is that Nintendo has absolutely no reason to listen to people like me, because people who share my opinions are few and far between. So what we want is not going to put a dent in their sales. Like, if we boycott anything from them, they wouldn't notice. What moves a game company, and what moves anyone, is profit. And if this is what's profitable... I mean, I understand that Nintendo has done things that would make it seem that they don't want money. They don't always... They're not a normal company. They have a lot of money, and they don't always do things that will necessarily make them the most money, but it's hard to ignore how well Breath of the Wild did, and I just think that the Zelda that I used to love and appreciate is probably dead. It probably is. It might not be, but it probably is, and that makes me really sad. Makes me really sad. If you compare the first Zelda game and Zelda 2 to Twilight Princess, yeah, it's different, but it's fundamentally the same thing. Which is good. You know, some people might say, well, if you do the same thing constantly, like if you've got the same formula for 35 years, it stagnates. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It stagnates if that's all you fucking play. Obviously. Why do I have to play only Zelda? I don't. So, you know, I'm not going to get sick of it because I can play other games. But not only other games, I can always come back to Zelda when I'm ready and want to enjoy that formula again. Well, now I'm not going to be able to do that with new games. I'll have to revisit games, which is sad and stupid. But yeah, well, what I was trying to describe was that it doesn't matter that the Zelda fans have been betrayed. I would say some of them don't care, which is, I think, the reason why some of them don't care is because they're a bit simple-minded. That's not to put them down, it's just to say that they don't. What they want is a game that's fun. That's it. They don't care. Outside of that, they could deliver a game that is the furthest thing from Zelda, and as long as it's fun, they're happy. But I think it's very important to establish what a Zelda game is, and not, you know, profane that. I think that needs to be really followed through with and respected. And Zelda Breath of the Wild has not respected the Zelda formula. It has thrown it out and has put its entire existence in the future in jeopardy, because it's been so incredibly popular that it will be hard to walk away from it. Had they done a spin-off or done a completely different game, imagine that, like a completely different IP, can you handle that, Nintendo? Apparently not. Had they done a completely different IP, or made a different IP, they could have existed simultaneously. Because they, I mean, maybe they wouldn't have truly existed simultaneously, but at least this would not have replaced it quite so clearly. Maybe the production of Zelda games would go down in frequency, but I mean, how much more infrequent can Zelda games be released? I mean, we were going like every 6 years we'd get a new one or something towards the end. So, well, the thing is, Hawk, it has absolutely no business being Zelda. Like, it has no business having that name, so it should just be a different game entirely. So that way, the traditional Zelda formula can coexist with this. Because once you've gone and changed people's perception of what Zelda is through a game like this, imagine the people who were, say, 13 when this game came out, and maybe they didn't really play Zelda games before then. Okay, maybe we'll do a younger age. Imagine you were 8 years old when this game came out, and all of a sudden, your perception of what Zelda is completely and utterly dictated by this. And then something that is much like the previous Zelda formula releases, all of a sudden you're going to be really confused. It's like, what's this? This isn't like Breath of the Wild. This isn't like Zelda. They might not put it in those terms. They might not say, this isn't Zelda. But that's how they're going to feel. It's not what they recognize to be Zelda. So what that means is that this kind of replaces it, doesn't it? When you decide that this is what a Zelda game is going to be, you do away with the old formula. And that's sad. That's really sad and stupid, and it doesn't need to be that way. And I'm really sad to see that. Really sad to see that happen. And the thing is, I think, because Breath of the Wild was a launch title for Switch, there's absolutely no reason why they needed to have the Zelda name help it out in the beginning, as far as, like, advertising was concerned. If Zelda had... not if Zelda had... If Nintendo had the balls to just do something new, in terms of IP, they've obviously done something new in terms of making a new game, but if they had the balls to just have a new name for something, then they would have succeeded with that new name. But they didn't. They stuck with Zelda, and now they've fucked with the Zelda series in the process. And that pisses me off. But yeah, it's not even a case of this being an evolved version of Zelda. It doesn't feel that way to me. It feels completely different. It's not like they've evolved it to the point where it's unrecognizable. They've just changed it. It's a different genre of adventure game now. And I don't like it at all. But if they were to make it obvious that it's a spin-off, it would be a little different. But even then, if you've got a spin-off that does better than the mainline series, it gets awkward, doesn't it? If a Zelda, or rather, if a series didn't need a reboot, it was Zelda, I'll tell you what. For me, Elder Scrolls scratches my open world sandbox itch. What can scratch my Zelda itch except for Zelda? Nothing, in my opinion. So, you know, it's like, you've got, what's a good example? What's a good analogy? Imagine you've got chocolate and you've got ice cream. You've got chocolate and ice cream. You've got these two options. Sometimes you feel like chocolate, sometimes you feel like ice cream. And then some guy comes along and says, hey, try this new chocolate. And they replace the ice cream with this new chocolate. And you taste the new chocolate and you're like, this is nice. But can I have this and the ice cream? And they're like, no. You're like, well, I've already got chocolate here. Why do I need this new chocolate? Fuck off. I want the option to have both ice cream and chocolate. If it has to be one or the other, I'll take the option where I can have more choice, you know. when a game like this comes along and replaces the entire unique Zelda formula, and it's not guaranteed that it has replaced it. We're at a bit of a uncertain time right now. But when it comes around and replaces that formula with something that I already, you know, as an itch can scratch by playing an Elder Scrolls game, I'm just sitting here like, why the fuck does this exist? Go away. Like, anyway. That's just me.